Greenwich Academy stood like a monument to privilege, its towering stone buildings and sprawling, meticulously maintained lawns exuding an air of exclusivity. For over a century, the Academy had produced senators, CEOs, and Supreme Court clerks with the same efficiency that other schools produce college graduates burdened with student loans. Miss Alana Parker took a deep breath before ascending the grand stone staircase leading into the main building. The golden morning sunlight highlighted the soft curls of her hair, creating a halo effect around her determined face. At 33, with degrees from Spelman and Yale, she had earned her place here, despite the raised eyebrows during her interview and the barely concealed surprise when she was actually hired. "Remember why you're here," she whispered to herself, gripping her leather portfolio a little tighter. Inside, Headmaster Lawrence's speech to the faculty droned on about tradition, maintaining academic excellence, and shaping the future leaders of tomorrow. Alana nodded along, noting that she was the only black face in a sea of white colleagues. Some smiled politely, others avoided eye contact entirely. And finally, Lawrence concluded, "Let's welcome our newest faculty member, Miss Alana Parker, joining our English department. She comes to us from Westfield Preparatory in Chicago." A smattering of polite applause followed. What the headmaster failed to mention was her award-winning curriculum development or her published literary criticism. Alana smiled anyway. Later that morning, she organized her classroom, carefully arranging books and hanging a few selected posters. James Baldwin beside Shakespeare, Toni Morrison beside Hemingway. It wasn't just decoration, it was a declaration. The warning bell rang, and students began filtering in. Alana's heart raced with anticipation. This was her element, the classroom, the literature, the opportunity to expand young minds. Then, in walked Julian Davenport. Everything about Julian radiated wealth and entitlement. From his custom-tailored uniform to the way he casually tossed his monogrammed leather backpack onto a desk, it was evident that he had never been denied anything in life. His father, Senator Charles Davenport, had recently announced his campaign for governor, and the family name adorned a wing of the school's library. Julian's sharp blue eyes scanned the room, landing on Alana with a flicker of surprise. Then, something else, amusement. He muttered something to a friend, who snickered. Alana pretended not to notice. "Welcome to Advanced English Literature," she began, her voice steady. "I'm Miss Parker." Julian raised his hand, but didn't wait to be acknowledged. "Are you sure you're in the right classroom? We were supposed to have Dr. Pembroke this year." The room fell silent. Alana felt 22 pairs of eyes watching, waiting for her response. "Dr. Pembroke retired last spring," she replied evenly. "I'll be taking over Advanced English Literature." "And you are?" "Julian Davenport," he said with a smirk, as though his name should have required no introduction. "Well, Mr. Davenport, I look forward to getting to know you and all your classmates this year. Now, shall we begin?" By the end of the first week, Alana had won over most of her students. Her passion for literature was infectious, and her discussion questions pushed them beyond surface-level analysis. But Julian remained an obstacle. He showed up late, interrupting discussions. He scoffed at assigned readings that weren't from the traditional Western canon. And then, one afternoon, he crossed a line. "Miss Parker," he said, leaning back in his chair, "aren't we spending a lot of time on, diversity literature? Shouldn't we be focusing on classics?" Alana took a measured breath. "William Faulkner won the Nobel Prize for Literature, Mr. Davenport. He's as classic as it gets." Julian smirked. "Right. It's just hard to keep up with all the new staff these days, especially the diversity hires." The room went silent. Even Julian's friends looked uncomfortable. Alana set down her marker and turned to him. "Mr. Davenport," she said, her voice even, "I'd be happy to discuss my qualifications with you after class. But for now, please open your book to page 15. Julian wasn't finished. "My father says Greenwich is lowering its standards for quotas." "I assure you," Alana replied, "I exceeded Greenwich's standards, just as I expect you to exceed mine." The bell rang, and as students filed out, Alana stopped Julian. Wait for me in the hallway. Julian leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Are you going to call my father? He's in D.C. this week, and my mother is in Europe. Alana studied him. No, Julian, I have a question for you. Why is it so important to you that I don't belong here? For the first time, Julian looked genuinely caught off guard. Before he could answer, the bell rang, releasing a flood of students into the hallway. We'll continue this conversation, Alana said. For now, you're excused. I expect a fresh start on Monday. A challenge like no other. Determined to reach Julian, Alana devised an unconventional assignment. A research project on invisible histories. Stories of extraordinary people whose contributions had been minimized or erased from historical narratives. Each student was to present their findings before the entire junior class. Julian objected immediately. So, we're doing a social justice project in English class now. Literature and history are inseparable, Alana replied. Understanding whose voices are amplified or silenced is key to analyzing any text. Julian scoffed. This is ridiculous. You want an alternative? She asked. Volunteer at the Eastwood Community Center for 15 hours. Then, present your findings. Julian laughed. That's on the east side. My parents would never. I volunteer there myself. It's safe. Julian's smirk faltered. If I refuse, then I report your continued behavior to the headmaster. Julian clenched his jaw. Phoenix. Transformation beyond the classroom. At Eastwood, Julian expected to coast through his hours unnoticed. Instead, he met Marcus, a 14-year-old chess prodigy who lacked the resources to compete in tournaments. He met Naomi, a 9-year-old math whiz who had never owned a new textbook. He met teenagers crafting college essays with none of the guidance he had taken for granted. For the first time in his life, Julian saw beyond his privilege. He saw talent and ambition without opportunity. And it changed him. On the day of his presentation, he took a deep breath and walked to the podium. My privilege isn't just wealth, he began. It's having teachers who believe in me. The greatest privilege is having someone challenge you to be more than your assumptions. As applause erupted, he turned to Miss Parker. I was wrong about you, he said. Miss Parker smiled. I knew you'd figure that out.